So this is a very, very long time lapse. As you can see, this puzzle took me about 8.5 hours. So couple reasons for that before I talk a little bit more about the puzzle itself and some of the technique that I'm trying to use. For starters, I am working on a table that barely fits the puzzle. You will see definitely later in the video, the puzzle is basically the size of the table. So I've got about 5 inches of table at the top that I can use to spread out the pieces once I've actually gotten that border constructed. I didn't realize how tight of a fit it was going to be, obviously, or I probably would have done the puzzle elsewhere. Um, if you can hear purring in the background, my cat has decided to join me to watch some puzzle videos today. Hi, cat. She loves being in on the action with all things puzzle. So basically, the first problem was not enough space on the table, which actually dramatically slowed me down. I couldn't flip and spread the pieces anywhere so that I could actually get a good overview of what I was working with. And so instead, I just have kind of a mess. And I actually have a lot of pieces actually still in the box because they just didn't fit on the table. And the second was I did this puzzle in a variety of light conditions, most of which were not very good for puzzling. So basically, cat, not right now, please. So I did this in a variety of light, some of which was better, some of which was worse. You can see here the light is changing, and you can see um, a better overview of the size of the table, but also there's just not a lot of space to be working with, and the light is creating a little bit of glare. So um, the final thing is this is a pomegranate art puzzle, and I find pomegranates to be fairly difficult because I often find art to be difficult, especially because this is it looks like more of an oil painting. And so it's a little bit harder to see patterns, it's a little bit more abstract. Um, and it's just a little bit tougher because of that. So we're now more than an hour into the puzzle. I've gotten most of the border done. Done as in I've pulled the border pieces and I've assembled a lot of the border. And I'm now trying to build the next most obvious. So I thought that this puzzle was going to be somewhat easy from the box because there are some color chunks in it, which you'll see emerging. But there weren't as many as I thought, and they didn't always obviously go together. So the purple I'm pulling is for flowers that I thought were going to be obvious, that I'd be able to kind of pull out and just do. They were not. So you're about to watch me also, as I realize how big the puzzle is, have a moment of panic it won't fit on the table. And then you see me pushing those pieces up. There is really not enough space to flip those and really go and work with them up there. That is a very tight section. So part of my motivation in doing this puzzle was just to find pieces and get them placed and snapped into the border just to reduce the total amount of stuff that was on my table. So as I continue doing the puzzle, you can see that I get some of these purple pieces together, and then once I've gotten the purple, I try to do a little bit of the red. Those were the two colors that I could see the most obviously, but unfortunately that purple turned out to be more difficult than I thought. So I pulled a lot of the purple, which you can see towards the bottom right, but it was just not connecting into the rest of the puzzle very well. And given the limited amount of space I had on the table, I tried to prioritize things that I could connect into the border. Not necessarily the best strategy for speed, but for me it was just like get stuff into the border and out of this big pile on the top so that I could start seeing things better, I could start working with the puzzle better. You can see actually the sides aren't even fully built yet because the puzzle is so big that it would basically have been close to falling off the table. And there were a few times that I lost the puzzle or part of the puzzle. There were a lot of pieces on the floor, unsurprisingly, at the end of this one. So just continuing with the trying to grab and build the red pieces. I'm jumping around quite a bit. Partially that was I was just trying to build whatever I could build, and so if I did see something, I would often just grab it and build it rather than um, be really good about saying I'm just going to do this and pull all the pieces. Partially, it was just really tough to see the pieces because I didn't have space to flip them, and so that made me much slower. I spent a lot of time, I think, trying to go through that pile and look for stuff. And this puzzle was actually done pretty early in my speed puzzling career, if I can call it that, when I was still sort of new to the sport. And so I'm doing everything strategically wrong. If I re-race this puzzle, a few things I would do differently. One, bigger table, flip the pieces. This would be a great example of a puzzle. You've just got to commit to flipping at the beginning because there are discernible chunks. Once you've gotten those chunks figured out, actually pull and build rather than what I'm doing, which is kind of haphazard um, and just space management. I think it's really easy to underestimate the impact of space management. And I actually trained for Worlds on a table that was a little bit smaller than the competition table. And I think that training in a smaller space can help because you get better at how you manage your space, but at the same time, this is not fun what I'm doing at this one. And it also does make it hard to do the puzzle well because you really are in a situation where you're just like, how am I going to find these pieces? Where am I going to build them? And if you can't connect them in, it makes it so you're like, well, I can't just have these chunks. I can't just build chunks. And I've got to build the border first just because otherwise I'm just not going to have space. This puzzle was also taking long enough that I was taking lots of breaks as I did it. So that is also impacting my average speed here. Yep, there's a break. So I am literally more than 4 hours into this puzzle now, and you can see I've barely gotten any of the inside done. Although I have at least gotten the border done. This is one of the slowest ever puzzles that I've done. Mostly just because, uh, yeah, I did it all wrong. Some of the breaks that I look like I'm taking in this image were actually I had the puzzle box on the chair next to me. You can see at this point I got tired of all the pieces at the top and I actually pushed them all back into the box. And so I had a box of unflipped pieces that I was working with and would just rummage through that box to pull colors as I needed to. Again, terrible speed puzzling strategy. But as you can see, I actually sped up quite a bit here because I could finally then get the whole border built, push the puzzle out towards the top, and have a much better sense of what I was working with. So the space felt much cleaner. And while I'm still not going very fast in in the speed puzzling world, I have definitely sped up compared to where I was going earlier in this particular puzzle. We almost have a line done at the top, that yellow background. So yes, the change in space strategy has really helped, although you can see I'm taking a lot of breaks to go do the puzzle rummaging. Um, I do feel a little sad about the way I had to do this puzzle. I think I would have enjoyed it much more had it been on a regular size table. um, And yes, it had not been 9 hours of slow work and so many pieces on the ground. I have been to Vienna. So this image is called Outside Vienna. I have been to Vienna. I have never seen this particular garden. Um, I do not remember any purple trees when I was outside Vienna, but maybe I went to the wrong spot. Artistic license, I think is what it's called. So anyway, in terms of puzzle strategy, what I'm doing now is actually trying to build the trees. So there are some large trees in this image that have what I thought would be somewhat distinctive trunks. They're not super distinctive. I think I probably should have stuck with building that yellow section in the back, um, or the purple, I guess brownish purpley thing on the upper right. But um, there's a fair amount of jumping here because it was also, they were fairly big chunks of color, and so the big chunks of color in combination with the fact that I'm rummaging through pieces to try to find them often um, slowed me down. The good news is, though, every piece I'm getting in is definitely helping to shape out this puzzle and definitely helping to make it go faster and just feel a little bit less stressy. And the trees are still not done, but they are better. Uh, I have given up on some of that brown tree top in the top right hand side because there were dots in it of color. And with the rummaging through the puzzle box to find pieces, that level of sorting and finding was just not going to happen. So I built what I built and am moving on. So initially I thought I was going to get these red chunks. I'd pulled a lot of the red pieces at the beginning to try to build these flowers. It got actually a lot easier once I had more built. There are multiple red flowers. I thought it would be easy enough to just build all of them. It wasn't. I think also I wasn't quite sure what some of the patterns in the puzzle look like. And as I got further into the puzzle, it got easier to kind of see and build those. And so as you see, I'm building this flower now and trying to connect it in to the rest of the puzzle just to continue to try to shape out, hey, this is what's in this puzzle. This is where things fit. And again, it's a little bit of a race just to get pieces off. I'm pulling out handfuls of pieces now from the box. And so the more pieces I can get into the actual puzzle, the easier it's going to be. You can see a handful of pieces actually sitting on top of the puzzle right now. Maybe. Uh, so now I'm also working with the fun benefit of both pieces on top of the puzzle, no space, and glare. So really, really fun combo here. But basically there's just not enough room. So there are pieces all over the top half of the puzzle, which is making it just a little harder to see and pick up where they are. Okay, so speeding up a little bit now that I've gotten many more of the pieces just put in and out of the way. I'm also now the box is mercifully empty enough that I can start flipping inside the box and actually see what I'm working on. Um, that's great. I really appreciate that. And so, surprisingly, I have more than 90 minutes left on this puzzle. Partially, working with some glare, some not great lighting. Um, but even so, I think that this is, as I have watched this, I've realized how much better I've gotten, even at just the pick and place portion that I'm working on now. Definitely don't think that, given where I am today compared to where I am was like a year and a half ago, I definitely don't think that this section would take me 90 minutes today once I had reached this part of the puzzle. Can see some pieces missing at the top that were a little harder to see before actually because I had pieces on the puzzle. Returning to the puzzle with coffee in hand, highly necessary. So I'm now, I have the pieces placed on top of the puzzle and I'm grabbing and placing. It is a really nice image actually once it's done. And there were a lot of pieces on the floor, unsurprisingly given size of table. But here we go. Things are finally finishing up. Look at that. I deserve that coffee.